how do you feel now that the album is out?
I feel rejuvenated, kind of, because
Michael Jackson's private jet during his Dangerous World Tour has long been a source of intrigue, surrounded by rumors of hidden secrets, opulence, and mystery. But when it was finally opened years after its use, the truth proved far more grounded, revealing a window into the real life of the king of pop on the road, one marked by routine, efficiency, and control rather than luxury or spectacle. The aircraft in question, a charter Boeing 727, was chosen not for extravagance but for its practical attributes. It was capable of carrying Michael, his close staff, and essential support personnel, while maintaining a tight schedule across continents during one of the most grueling tours of the early 1990s. The 727, a narrow-body trijet known for its adaptability and ability to land at smaller airports, was the ideal choice for an artist whose every move needed to be protected from public chaos. Rather than modifying the aircraft to resemble a flying palace, Michael opted for a standard VIP layout. Leather recliner seats, modest compartments, a private lounge, and a small sleeping area with blackout curtains. The atmosphere on board was deliberately quiet and functional. There were no built-in recording studios, gold fittings, or parties. Instead, the jet served as a retreat, somewhere he could rest, read scripts, listen to demo tracks on headphones, review show notes, and mentally reset between performances. The space was manned by a tight-knit crew briefed to minimize disruptions, with security always on board, and protocols in place to ensure privacy at every airport. Even as food was simple, herbal teas, fruit, and baked chicken prepared by a dedicated flight attendant, or sometimes his personal chef, adhering strictly to his dietary preferences. The logistics behind the Dangerous tour were nothing short of monumental. While Michael flew on the 727, the rest of his production, a massive operation involving over 100 personnel and more than 100 tons of stage equipment, moved separately via cargo planes like Boeing 747s and fleets of trucks, depending on the region. This machinery transported lighting rigs, sound systems, scaffolding, generators, wardrobe cases, and everything else needed to replicate his epic stage production in city after city. From Tokyo to Munich to Buenos Aires, every stop was mapped out in advance, with blueprints detailing venue layouts, security arrangements, and technical requirements. Crews rehearsed not only for the show, but also for setup and teardown operations, which often had to be completed in hours to avoid fines or logistical delays. Michael wasn't hands-on with the technical side, but he was deeply involved in personnel decisions, ensuring that trusted professionals handled key aspects of production. The backstage effort included a full-time catering unit that served over 200 meals daily, often under strict health guidelines tailored to each country. Power issues in parts of Eastern Europe and South America led to diesel generators being flown in ahead of time. Meanwhile, security remained a constant challenge, involving coordination between local police, private firms, and Jackson's own team, all of whom worked under precise protocols to protect both the star and his audience. Throughout all of this, the 727 functioned as a stable, private space, unassuming, unbranded, and deliberately low profile. After the tour, the aircraft was returned to civilian use and eventually faded from public memory until a group of aviation preservationists rediscovered it years later. When they finally opened the doors, the reality was unexpectedly moving. Rather than finding glamour or scandal, they uncovered small remnants of a once-in-a-lifetime tour, a laminated flight schedule aligning with Jackson's 1993 tour legs, a worn flight bag containing a pair of sunglasses, a handwritten note listing city stops, and a set of used noise-canceling headphones. There were carbon copies of flight paperwork, a weather report for Buenos Aires, a meal checklist with Jackson written at the top, and even a tucked-away envelope with undeveloped photos. Snapshots of the crew, a blurry shot of Michael boarding the aircraft, all untouched by fame or commercial intent. These relics didn't expose secrets, but instead offered a quiet glimpse into grueling, meticulously planned life Jackson lived at 30,000 feet. They showed that for all his fame, Michael needed solitude, rest, and a space to recover between the chaos of sold-out stadiums and flashing cameras. The jet wasn't hiding a mystery. It was hiding in plain sight the truth of Michael's life on tour, a reality defined not by gold and glitter, but by silence, structure, and the need for a refuge above the clouds. The space, though stripped of some of its original fittings over the years, still bore the echoes of what it once was, a place of transit and reprieve for the most famous entertainer on Earth. For those who opened the plane, the experience was surreal. It reminded them in the world that behind the king of pop's legend stood a man who, despite his global status, sought only a pocket of peace and sky, away from the cameras, in a jet that did its job with quiet dignity. Michael Jackson's private jet, the legendary Boeing 727 that ferried the king of pop across continents during his landmark Dangerous World Tour, has long been a subject of fascination, mystery, and rumor. For years, fans speculated about what the inside of the aircraft might contain. Hidden chambers, secret notes, or opulent features tailored for one of the most famous entertainers the world has ever known. But when the aircraft was eventually examined by aviation preservationists years after retirement, the reality turned out to be far more grounded than the imagination of fans and tabloids had anticipated. The jet, leased rather than owned outright by Michael, served as a crucial logistical asset during a tour that spanned dozens of countries and touched millions of lives. It wasn't a palace in the skies. It was a flying command center, a vessel designed not for indulgence, but for routine, rest, and protection from the relentless public and media attention Michael constantly faced. The choice of the Boeing 727 wasn't accidental. It was large enough to accommodate a security team, medical staff, personal assistant, and select tour members, but also nimble enough to fly into regional airports where larger aircraft might not land with ease. Capable of cruising at 570 miles per hour and with a range of over 2,500 miles, the 727 was a practical solution for Michael's intense travel schedule. During the early 1990s, especially amid the Dangerous tour, Jackson was under immense physical and emotional pressure, often juggling performances, humanitarian efforts, and media scrutiny all at once. Unlike the lavish jets often associated with pop stars and billionaires, Michael's aircraft was a relatively understated setup. Insiders who toured or worked aboard the jet revealed that while it was reconfigured for VIP use, it lacked excessive luxury. There were no gold-plated fixtures or extravagant entertainment systems. Instead, it featured a modest layout that included leather recliner seats, a small rest area with blackout curtains, a galley for simple meals, and a private lavatory. Michael, who often traveled in silence, used the aircraft primarily as a sanctuary in the sky. He'd read scripts, listen to music demos on his headphones, review show notes, and, when necessary, consult with staff about tour logistics. Rarely did he engage in idle conversation or socializing while flying. The plane was quiet, dimly lit, and always secure. A member of his private security detail was consistently seated within a few rows of him, and the boarding process was meticulously orchestrated to avoid public exposure. He typically entered through a secluded rear stairwell, and in many cases, airport personnel were unaware of his presence until long after the plane had landed. The Dangerous World Tour was itself a monumental effort, a rolling, global city powered by teams of professionals who handled everything from stage rigging to meal preparation. Over 100 personnel, including dancers, engineers, caterers, and medical staff, traveled in convoys or on separate flights, while tons of equipment, lighting systems, sound gear, staging elements, and backup generators were hauled in by Boeing's 747 cargo jets and fleets of trucks. In cities where local infrastructure couldn't support the tour's enormous power demands, diesel generators capable of powering entire neighborhoods were flown in to keep performances running smoothly. Staging setups required intricate coordination. Venues had to be cleared in hours, sometimes overnight, to avoid fines or adhere to tight travel timelines. From Tokyo to Rio de Janeiro, the goal was to create an identical concert experience regardless of geography. Behind this consistency was a backbone of logistics, where team members rehearsed not only choreography but tear-down procedures. Flight crew and tour management used faxes, walkie-talkies, and printed schedules to orchestrate this ballet of movement, long before smartphones or GPS were available. Meanwhile, Michael remained mostly insulated from the chaos, relying on his trusted team to maintain a strict routine that helped him conserve energy for grueling, high-stakes performances. The jet played an essential role in this rhythm. Designed to shield him from the external pressures of fame, it was less about spectacle and more about silence, solitude, and recovery. Michael's dietary needs were also closely managed in the air. Meals were simple, healthy, and prepared in accordance with his preferences. Baked chicken, steamed vegetables, fresh fruit, and herbal teas. Flight attendants received detailed instructions and followed tight procedures to avoid introducing stress or surprises during travel. Medical staff occasionally traveled with him, and a compact medical kit was always available, although it was reportedly never used for emergencies during the dangerous tour. The interior, although never officially photographed or shown to the public, was pieced together through accounts from aviation crew and production insiders. It likely resembled a subdued first-class layout with minor customization, reduced seating to allow more personal space, perhaps a single bed in a curtained area, and a work table where Michael could review documents. One notable absence was a built-in recording studio, despite persistent rumors to the contrary. Michael would listen to demos, but never recorded aboard the jet. Entertainment systems were minimal, with maybe a wall-mounted screen and VHS player, but he preferred reading or resting between flights. Often, he used noise-canceling headphones and kept the cabin environment extremely quiet, even during takeoffs and landings. The overall feeling was that of a controlled cocoon, an anti-spectacle that allowed him to exist away from the intensity of his fame. When the tour ended and the aircraft was returned to civilian use, its connection to Michael Jackson faded from the public eye. For years, it existed only in flight logs and the memories of those who had once walked its narrow aisles. But interest surged again when aviation preservationists acquired and inspected the aircraft decades later. What they discovered, however, was not a treasure trove of hidden memorabilia, but rather a time capsule of professional touring life. In sealed compartments and behind broken panels, remnants of the dangerous tour were uncovered. Small but evocative artifacts. A flight bag containing worn headphones, a handwritten itinerary of tour stops, a laminated flight schedule with routes from Tokyo to Seoul to Taipei, and a meal checklist labeled with Jackson's name were all found. The most striking find came from a hidden maintenance hatch near the rear of the aircraft. Inside a discolored envelope was a series of grainy photographs, seemingly taken with a 35mm camera. They showed candid moments. Cockpit crew posing in front of the aircraft, and one slightly blurry shot of Michael, head bowed, ascending the stairs at night. These images weren't promotional or staged. They were raw, human, and intimate, offering a rare window into the quieter, in-between moments of a tour that captivated millions. Despite the years of speculation, what was ultimately revealed wasn't shocking or scandalous, but deeply human. There was no vault of secrets, no shocking revelations hidden in the fuselage, just fragment of a life lived at high speed and high pressure, stitched together with efficiency, routine, and an insistence on privacy. In truth, the jet served exactly the purpose it was meant to. It moved Michael Jackson from one massive event to the next with precision and discretion. The legacy of that aircraft lies not in its design or decor, but in what it enabled. A tour that reshaped the boundaries of live performance and artist logistics. The fact that the plane's contents were so understated only reinforces the complexity of Michael's life. His fame unmatched, yet his needs on the road surprisingly simple. Even as the world saw him as a dazzling icon, his sanctuary in the skies remained a place of silence, structure, and personal space. It wasn't luxury he sought, but predictability amid the chaos. The discovery of those few personal items decades later served as poignant proof. The king of pop may have ruled global stages, but he flew between them with modesty, discipline, and a longing for peace. While the 727 will never be part of a national museum or preserved as an iconic showpiece, its story continues to echo in the annals of entertainment history, a silent witness to one of the most ambitious concert tours ever attempted, and a moving fortress that helped a global superstar navigate an exhausting and extraordinary journey. Fans will always speculate about what was and what might have been aboard that aircraft, but the truth, assembled piece by those who opened its doors years later, tells a story far richer than any legend. A story of man tried to rest, heal, and prepare for the next moment the spotlight came on. And in the end, that quiet, grounded truth speaks louder than myth ever could. In recent years, the mystique of Michael Jackson's tour aircraft has inspired aviation enthusiasts, music historians, and fans alike to delve deeper into the logistics behind the glitz. Documentaries and fan-driven research have tried to reconstruct the jet's routes, passenger manifests, and even estimated fuel consumption. all in pursuit of understanding how such a massive operation moved with almost mechanical precision. Every airport the 727 landed at required advanced coordination with local authorities, customs officials, and private security companies. In some countries, Michael's arrival had to be timed to avoid protests or to meet specific diplomatic agreements. Such was the scale of his global influence. Even taxiing on the runway was occasionally done under heavy guard, with police escorts flanking the jet as if it were a presidential aircraft. Once in Bucharest, local authorities rerouted air traffic just to give Jackson's jet priority clearance. These instances further underline how the plane, though ordinary by design, was treated as an extraordinary vessel simply because of its occupant. And while the aircraft no longer soars to the skies, the mythology it carried continues to resonate, serving as a symbol of the often unseen machinery behind greatness, and a quiet reminder that even icons need a place to rest between moments of brilliance.